what are we doing about the budget for Ukraine?
Well, we're doing about the budget with Ukraine the way we eventually formalized for the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. That is to say, it's icing on the cake. It goes on top of what's called the base budget. And that's where Ukraine is. We've funded all of the Ukraine stuff through supplemental budget requests. It is on top of the package. So to the degree that you think both parties right now in the Congress until this current year are prepared to spend as much as they feel it possible to spend with the brakes off on caps, they just add it to the pile. It just gets added to, and it's funded by deficit financing and the sale of treasury notes. And that's, becomes part of the deficit. And then we have arguments over the debt ceiling and blah, blah, blah. But that's the way Congress behaves. And it is the way administrations behave too, because stuff happens. You didn't anticipate it. You need to support it. As I said earlier, in Afghanistan and Iraq, we eventually formalized it into an overseas contingencies operation account, but that was just for planning purposes. It really didn't change what we were doing, but it meant you to take the money and put it outside any constraints over the defense budget. And we'll do that, I think, with Ukraine as well. There's a couple of things that's important to note, though, about the spending figures for Ukraine. We got about $20 billion worth of what's called excess defense articles or transfers of equipment. That is an authority that the president has, usually delegated to the Secretary of State, to provide to somebody else on an emergency basis anything that's in the U.S. military inventory. And so when it wasn't possible, I mean, if you wanted to buy new tanks for Ukraine here, wait 3 years, because that's how long it takes you to get your tank. If you get tanks already parked somewhere and you can send them to Ukraine, then the wait time is checking them out, making sure they operate, making sure the Ukrainians are trained, putting them on a boat and sending them off, right? Get them to Europe, ship them into Ukraine, which is what we've been doing for the last year. So we have transfers of equipment that are scored as an expenditure that actually are not. They're stuff we already bought, we already paid for it, we're giving it to Ukraine. We did that with the 155 millimeter shells. We're going to do it with the M1A1 tanks. Anything that we're doing, the HIMARS, all that stuff.
Just going to ask about the HIMARS.
Is stuff we had in kit, and we'd already bought it, right? What the services get antsy about, for understandable reasoning, is you're taking my stockpile. What the hell? How am I going to fight a war if I have to fight a war? I haven't got anything in my stockpile, right? Particularly an issue for the services with respect to 155 military shells in the Army, right? Because we burned through millions of those, giving them to the Ukrainians, right? So a lot of the supplemental spending that you're seeing is refill. There's about $30 billion worth of refill. It's saying, okay, stocks are dwindling. I'm going to need more, missile sets. I'm going to need more artillery shells. I'm going to need more armored personnel carriers. I just sent 34 Bradleys over to Ukraine. So we're back ordering, as it were, from what we have shipped out the front door. That is the big piece that leads me to say we will see this level of expenditure for a while, because the services are only going to be willing bureaucratically. I mean, they have to do it if the president says do it, but bureaucratically they can either resist or do it, right? And they will be less resistant if you tell them, the cavalry's at the top of the hill and heading in, because we're back ordering all those missiles and all of those artillery shells and all the stuff that we're shipping. So are we able to fund it? Yes. Are we able to produce it? Yes. Can the Ukrainians use it? Well, question mark. They seem to be doing pretty well so far. Can we get it there in time? It would appear that we're doing that. I think the Ukrainians have delayed their announcement of the big offensive for the spring, not just for the weather, but to make sure all that kit is there and the training is there and they're ready to rock and roll when the time comes to move forward.